Did you know that Broken Vessel used to be found in Green Path before he was replaced with Hornet later in development? In a game with lots of huge, intimidating bosses, you wouldn't have ventured to guess that this little fellow, despite his size, was going to be one of the most fun to fight. Not only does he look awesome and builds on the exciting lore of this wonderful world, but his attacks are almost perfect in their design. Almost perfect. I'm Holland, and this is Behind the Boss. Arriving through the Deepness tram, or falling from the caves above, you find yourself in a strange, forgotten place known as the Ancient Basin. The catchy background ambience that has pervaded the game up until now is gone, replaced with a dark and hollow droning. This area is unlike anything you've seen up until now, its closest association being that of Deepness, but even that area had a clear purpose to make you feel frightened and claustrophobic. Ancient Basin is just kind of empty. Well, mostly empty. The only boss encountered down here is, unsettlingly enough, a sibling of yours. Not counting the Hollow Knight, Broken Vessel is the only time in the game where you get to go nail to nail with another vessel like yourself. Throughout the game, we're shown how multiple of our fellow kin were defeated or captured while attempting to escape the abyss. So too does Broken Vessel appear to have been overcome by a greater force, having succumbed tragically close to the birthplace from which we can only assume he struggled to emerge. But now, reanimated by the infection he was made to contain, he's not going down twice without a proper fight. Now that we've set the stage, let's move on to the main question. To the extent that Broken Vessel is a great boss, what makes him so? Well, to start with, I find basically all of his attacks really fun to respond to. Let's start by talking about the slash and the aerial slash. These two attacks, which are basically just the same attack performed on the ground or in the air, make up a core part of Broken Vessel's moveset. Because of that, it's only to his great benefit that these are also, in my opinion, some of his best moves. I'd actually go as far as to say that these are some of the best moves in the entire game. Which may sound wild because look at them, they're so simple. Well, true, but I like that. I like simple moves that have a clear telegraph but aren't necessarily easy to respond to if you're not paying attention. In addition to that, both attacks give you different options for responding, by striking Broken Vessel while he's above or below you, setting up for a spell attack, or just getting in perfect position to start swinging at him as soon as he's done attacking. Both slashes are well-designed attacks that punish unobservant and overconfident players alike, and I love these kinds of punishes because they mean you can't just go swinging your nail recklessly without taking into consideration that every time you strike the boss, he might counter you by charging up a slash. Broken Vessel's next move is a little strange, but for some reason I still really like it. It's called Flail on the wiki and sees the boss standing completely still while violently swinging his weapon back and forth. It can catch you off guard, but in my estimation, it's his weakest attack. Still, if you're too close when he starts doing it and aren't ready for it, you're gonna get hit. And I like that. If you escape quickly, the attack also gives you time to heal and clear infected balloons from the arena, which really helps with pacing. Next up is a move simply known as Balloon. Well, it isn't even really a move in the sense that Broken Vessel doesn't actively have to do anything to trigger it. After Broken Vessel has lost 105 health, this effect will activate for the rest of the fight. While active, infected balloons will start spawning throughout the arena, slowly moving toward you and causing damage if touched. The fun part of this attack is that it gives you something to busy yourself with during the fight, in addition to supplying you with soul for casting more spells. This attack is so fun, in fact, that I think it defines the Broken Vessel fight. The only reason I cannot say the move is without flaws is because the balloons spawn in random places. This isn't too big of a deal if you're pretty confident with the fight already. But even so, sometimes you can just get really unlucky and have a balloon spawn right under you as you finish your dash, making it hard to avoid taking damage. Additionally, when trying to heal during the fight, you're often just hoping and praying that a balloon doesn't spawn near you, forcing you to cancel your heal. If it weren't for the randomness, I'd love this move just as much as the aforementioned slash attacks. It really does a lot to make the fight as fun as it is. Broken Vessel's final three moves are each quite unique, but have a key component in common. I'll start by talking about the two best ones and then touch on the main issue they all share when discussing the final move. First up, we have Slam. During this attack, Broken Vessel jumps to a position above the player's head and thrusts himself downward, creating 4 blobs of infection that float toward the ceiling. Once you get the hang of how to consistently dodge this attack, it becomes really fun to do. My strategy is to jump, land right next to the boss, then use my nail on him and cast a Vengeful Spirit for a hefty counterattack. The second move, which bears some resemblance to Slam, is Cascade. During this attack, Broken Vessel positions himself in the middle of the arena and starts bobbing back and forth, creating dozens of infected orbs that travel downward, then upward. I find this attack pretty tricky to dodge, but because it doesn't pull any punches, it's usually just a fun, difficult challenge. It also only triggers at specific health intervals, helping to communicate just how close you are to victory. Overall, a pretty fun and creative attack. And finally, the last move. The one that snatches defeat from the jaws of victory. Broken Vessel's Achilles heel. The jump. Yes, indeed a rather inconspicuous grand villain. Still, I think it's clearly his worst quote-unquote attack. If you've watched my video on repositioning, you'll already know why I think the jump is a flawed move. And even amongst those who don't agree with my arguments in that video, a lot can still point to Broken Vessel and say, something's pretty clearly wrong here. The problem is even more pronounced in the Lost Kin fight, where the speeds at which the boss can move across the screen seem to strike most people as pretty absurd, especially for an untelegraphed attack. As I just mentioned, I've gone into detail about this issue in my video on repositioning moves, which I'll link to down below if you're interested. For now, let me just make 2 quick distinctions that tie the jump move to Slam and Cascade. The reason I group these 3 moves together is because they all involve Broken Vessel leaping across the arena. However, all 3 moves do it slightly differently, with varying degrees of fairness. When using Slam, Broken Vessel targets the player's current location so he can hit them head-on when dashing toward the ground. This usually makes it harder for him to accidentally hit you because he's traveling to a point that's pretty far above your head, though it is still very possible to get hit during the jump if you're in the air when he decides to perform it. Before triggering Cascade, Broken Vessel relocates to the middle of the arena. While this may look like a regular jump, it won't ever be as fast as one because the boss will always be relatively close to his destination. You can also kind of predict when he'll perform this move due to Cascade only triggering at certain points during the fight, in which case you know to stay away from the center of the screen. But again, this move still has the potential to hit you out of nowhere. And for the regular old jump, well, it's one of the most sporadic and unpredictable repositioning moves in the entire game. A dark stain on an otherwise near-perfect boss. Before I move on to my final thoughts on Broken Vessel, I want to include his big brother in the discussion as well. Lost Kin is the dream version of Broken Vessel, and like other dream bosses, you access him by acquiring the Dream Nail and talking to the spirit hovering above his corpse. While the 2 fights are very similar, it's worth noting their differences. Firstly, and most notably, Lost Kin has more health and moves more quickly than Broken Vessel. Secondly, he creates 2 more blobs of infection when using Slam. Thirdly, he summons infected balloons at a faster rate and begins spawning them very early on in the fight. And finally, Lost Kin, for whatever reason, never uses Cascade. All I can say about Lost Kin is that basically all of his strengths and weaknesses carry over from Broken Vessel and are enhanced due to his increased action speed. This means that he's even more fun than the original for people looking for a fast-paced challenge, but can also get on your nerves more than ever before. Zooming back out and looking at both of these fights as one entity, it's safe to say that flaws aside, Broken Vessel and Lost Kin have many hours of engaging gameplay to offer. And it's not fair for me to claim that their downsides, however frustrating they may be at times, outweigh their upsides. There were even some positives I couldn't find place for anywhere else in the script, like how satisfying it feels to get multi-hits with Vengeful Spirit, or how Desolate Dive can be used tactically to dodge difficult attacks like Cascade. While I try to be as open to criticism as possible, I continue to stand by the issue I have with repositioning. But gosh, even with that glaring issue hitting me in the face every few times I go up against Broken Vessel or Lost Kin, I just cannot stop wanting to have just one more go at the boss. Because there's no denying it. Broken Vessel and Lost Kin are 2 of the best fights in the entire game. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear what you think about Broken Vessel and Lost Kin, so feel free to leave a comment down below. And for those of you waiting for part 2 in the Reworking Every Charm series, I promise you, it's on the way. I'm blown away by how many people watched and enjoyed that video, and I'll do my absolute best to do the rest of the series justice. Have a wonderful day. Bye!